for tuning into this week's Stacker Chat. Stacks is smart contracts for Bitcoin, and I'm joined by Muneeb Ali, Stacks founder, with your weekly updates. So to jump right into it, Chris Berninski recently shared a very interesting graph. It basically showed developer interests as compared to network value. And so we can link to that graph below in the resources, but can you summarize sort of the takeaway and opportunity ahead for Stacks?
Yeah, I think that was a very interesting graph when I saw it. So basically what it does is it's trying to measure developer interests. And I think the proxy that they're using for developer interests is just GitHub stars. So on GitHub, if a developer is interested in a project, they can basically start it, which is kind of like a follow, like they can keep, updated on it, or they're kind of like liking the project. So he's using GitHub stars as a proxy for interest from developers and plotting that against both the circulating market cap and the fully diluted market cap. So the projects that are on the left side basically have the ratio where the GitHub stars are very high and the market cap is very low. And not surprising enough, I think Stacks basically ends up on the extreme end on the left side, meaning that I think the takeaway from the graph is that a lot of developers are interested in what's happening with Stacks, like smart contracts for Bitcoin, so many new kind of like infrastructure and tools being built, and it's a very kind of like engineering and developer-driven culture as well. Like there are a lot of builders in this industry, in this ecosystem, and we are kind of like not very heavy on like marketing and hyping things up and stuff like that. So I think that graph is kind of like a perfect snapshot of this thing. But digging a little bit deeper into it, I don't think the Stacks project wants to remain in that state where, hey, only kind of like developers know about it and not the mainstream folks. So I do think part of like my focus these days is writing in-depth content that is easily accessible to a much broader audience. And same thing with Trust Machines, at least, which is one of the entities in the ecosystem. We're trying to get people like Aubrey to come in and join and help kind of like simplify our messaging so the narrative can actually appeal to a much broader audience. So I do think that like that graph kind of like signifies that there's a lot of value being built here, but it's not recognized by the broader crypto industry, which I think is pretty spot on for this point in time right now.
Great, thank you. And as you were mentioning, there's a lot of builders here. There's been a ton of exciting news lately. Last week we saw the Stacks Ventures announce their second cohort of companies. XUSD came online on Alex. We've also seen a number of upgrades in the various NFT marketplaces, which is really exciting. But this is all amid a sort of a more bearish looking landscape. And so how are you feeling for sort of builders and momentum more generally?
Yeah, so I think I've seen a bunch of bear markets, like probably 3 of them, right? So as far as I am personally concerned, or as far as like Trust Machines or Hero, the company where I'm the chair of the board, is concerned, like we basically made sure that we have enough capital for the many years to come, right? So I think the number one thing in crypto, as far as my mental models go, is that you need to be there for the long term, right? So you're focused on the long term. These are volatile markets. Things are going to go up. Things are going to come down. But people who are really driven by the mission more than anything else, like those are the type of people you want to attract. And then you just want to make sure that you have enough capital to survive for years to come, because this is really a long game, right? Like these technologies take a time to build. Like different building blocks need to be present, and then the entire industry hasn't gone mainstream yet, right? Like it might seem like there has been a lot of growth, but we haven't gone mainstream at all, right? Like there are at best, I would say, hundreds of thousands of users who are really active. Like if you look at the trading volume on an NFT marketplace or something, it's like hundreds of thousands of users who would be like really active on a daily basis. And then there's a long tail, like millions of people who have had some exposure to crypto, like they've bought Bitcoin or Ethereum at some point and it's like sitting in their wallet. But it's definitely not like 100 million users or 500 million users or a billion users. So the bulk of the internet users, they haven't really experienced crypto. They haven't really have become users on a daily level, right? So you need to make sure that your project actually survives long enough so that when real kind of like traction and real adoption happens, you're kind of like there. So that's like the first thing. The second thing is that I do think it matters like what type of talent you're attracting. Like for example, if your project was like putting out a lot of incentives, which is really free money on the table, that hey, come and kind of like collect this money. What you'll notice is that during a bear market, those projects actually take like a bigger hit because these are mercenaries. They came in for the money, and the money dried up. They're going to pack up and leave, right? Whereas if you're attracting people who are driven by the mission, who really believe in something, and I think Bitcoin actually scores very high there, and I think Stacks actually scores very high there as well. Bitcoin is really like a grassroots movement, and the reason why Bitcoin survives is because it is a mission that people feel very passionate about, that we want to build the best form of money, and Bitcoin is the most decentralized, the most secure chain out there, and it's mostly because of how grassroots driven it is. And similarly, I think if you look at Stacks, that we want to take the best form of money out there, $1 trillion of Bitcoin capital, make it productive, let developers come in and build all sorts of tools on top. Like that is something a lot of people can get behind. If you really believe in the idea and you want to start a business, you have a startup, you raise some amount of capital, then you need to just learn to kind of like ignore the noise, right? And ignore the volatility in the market because you're operating in a potentially very, very large market with a lot of opportunities, and you have the resources to kind of like keep your heads down and keep working towards it, right? So I think that's how I typically see bear markets, and we have survived enough of them before, and we are very well prepared for a potential crypto winter. If anything, I think crypto winters are the best time to build some of the products because just the amount of noise in the ecosystem just goes down. And generally in the industry, there's much less noise. People who kind of like stick around, they're the true believers, and you want to interact with them, you want to build interesting things with them, and then just wait for kind of like the next cycle where again a ton of kind of like wave of interest comes in, both from users, investors, and so on.